So, just out of pure curiosity, and this is, just for the sake of our listeners, I watched the Ashton Kutcher 2013 Jobs movie after we talked about the Danny Boyle film. And, I went into it with the mindset of, okay, I'm going to give it a chance. I know it's not going to be as good as the Danny Boyle, Michael Fassbender joint, but maybe it's got like some production value to, take from it, or maybe it's got like some cool shots, or like maybe some decent music here and there. And I watched it, and I didn't expect it to be one of the worst fucking movies I have seen all year. It is horrendously bad. Yeah. And I want to hear your thoughts on it, because I forced one of my coworkers to watch it because I needed somebody to talk to about it. I'm not kidding, Mac. After I finished the movie, I called Megan and I ranted to her about it for like 20 minutes straight because I just couldn't believe what I had just seen.
Yeah, no, you're no, well, you forced me to watch it too.
I'm sorry.
Well, it was one of the ones where it's like at some point you kind of want to check it out. This to me was like Speed 2 if you missed it when it first came out.
Yeah.
Like I remember the same thing. Like I saw this right away and I loved it, but I was 9. And I need someone else to see it to let me know if this is really bad or if I'm right on being like this is a cheeseburger movie. So that's the fear of when you watch films like that just go under the radar. This thing I was working on my playbook, so this was in the background. I do my normal, like I'm going to give this thing 15, 20 minutes to see how much I really have to pay attention to.
And then at a certain point you decide it's not worth it.
10 minutes in, when they got through the first montage.
White noise.
Dude, they had so my biggest thing when I watch films is how many times do they play some music. And like at the very beginning, you know, normally it's a good sign for a bad film, because obviously they don't have enough content with the exposition, so they have to do a lot of filler with some like hip tunes that keep people engaged.
It's insane how like back to back to back like all the music is in this film. Yeah, used as like a fucking crutch to like carry the film because it's got literally nothing else to offer.
They didn't know what to. I feel kind of bad for like the man Steve Jobs, because this was their first attempt at like this is what we can do to show people how great he was, or whatever they want to do with them.
Yeah, this film came out 2013. The Danny Boyle one came out 2015.
Yeah. Now do you see why I didn't want to watch the Danny Boyle one? Like I knew how bad this one was, and I hadn't even seen it. So they're like, we came out with the second one. I was like, pass.
Yeah, well, what's crazy is that other people thought the same thing you did, because the Danny Boyle one made less money than the Ashton Kutcher one.
Yeah,
which is really fucking sad.
It's all there we go. Now I'm glad I finally swayed you on this.
Yeah. It's fucking crazy. So, and I don't mean to cut you off, because there's a lot of shit I need to get off my chest with this movie.
I feel like this is you venting and me chiming in when I can.
I need to get it out like a fucking demon. So this movie, from the word go, he hobbles in on stage and he's doing the fucking weird ass Steve Jobs walk, and he's like, "Oh, we're gonna reveal something to you guys that'll revolutionize technology," and he like sounds like an older version of like fucking Michael Kelso. I could not separate Ashton Kutcher from this role in any way.
Well, no, I think the most genuine they got was at the beginning, though. Like, I really do think that was the closest they got to, like, someone somewhere was like, we need to nail this, and we need to make him look just like him, which, credit to Boyle, just going like, Fassbender ain't going to look like Jobs. We're not going to make him look like Jobs. Let's just make him, like, his personality like Jobs.
Right, and that definitely like carries through to it, because like you can look past how different he looks.
That's why I'm saying, like, in this they looked at Kutcher and they're like, he ain't doing that. We got to make him look just like Jobs.
Well, you can tell that they just cast Ashton Kutcher because at one point in his life, Steve Jobs looked like Ashton Kutcher, like in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, with the beard and shit. Like,
yeah, he just straight up just looked like a dirtbag hippie guy.
And that's how they portray him too. Like,
right.
I mean, some of the thing in this is like interesting and fascinating, because you get a little bit more of the unfortunately, it's probably all diluted with shit, but there's 10% in there that's genuine.
Yeah.
That, like, it kind of... It helps out with the... In my opinion, it helped out with the other film. Which is, I don't know, good or bad.
It makes the other film look better. That's for sure.
It also gives you a little bit more insight into, like... Because in the other one, you just get him and he's just a dick right off the get.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit more of that background, like how did he get to this point? And you can kind of see where he's coming from and his thoughts on the world and how to revolutionize technology in a sense.
A little bit, but this movie, it's like an instant finger snap. It's like fucking light switch goes off to where he's like just normal, laid back, hippie Steve Jobs. And then all of a sudden something takes place. I don't remember when exactly in the movie, but he's just a complete asshole for like no fucking reason. He's like, quit eating that burrito, Waz. You're such a fat piece of shit. It's like, Jesus.
Did he say do all that?
He didn't say exactly that, but he might as well have. The movie treats Steve Wozniak like he's a dopey, nerdy piece of shit who just constantly eats all the time.
I think I was talking to you or my brother, but I was like, I really would like a Woz movie coming out because this guy has not been able to defend himself whatsoever to the public.
No, I have a better appreciation for the Seth Rogen version now.
Way better, right?
He plays it with so much more nuance and character, and he's so much more than just like nerdy fat guy. Whereas like Josh Gad in this movie, like, I mean, fuck, maybe he did what he could. I don't know, but it was just so fucking terrible.
Dude, they made him, what do you call that thing in the horror movies or whatever? The Ginklepuff or the
Dinkelhoff?
The Dinkelhoff. He's like a Dinkelhoff in this thing.
Steve Wozniak is the Dinkelhoff of Ashton Kutcher Jobs movie. 100%.
It's so bad how poorly he's written.
He's just a fat comic relief character who we're like supposed to laugh at and be like, haha, he's fat and nerdy.
Yeah. Wow, look at him build all that shit.
Yeah.
God, he's an idiot.
I think I want to name it something like Enterprise Productions. No Star Trek, you nerdy fuck.
Yeah. God damn it. Fucking Woz, you're so stupid and fat.
I hate you.
Yeah.
Also, you're my best friend. Please don't leave Apple.
Yeah, you're making the processor for Mac 2, correct?
Yeah. So I kind of want to go back to like towards the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Just to kind of
we
switch
can
gears
rant
again.
as long as we want. This thing doesn't Jasmine will hit us a week after, so.
Okay, how pressed for time are you tonight? Because I don't know how deep I want to get into this.
We're still at not having the kid tomorrow, so I got a little time to spare.
Okay, just let me know when we go too far with this, because we do have the other episode to record.
Oh, it's all good. I mean, if this we know, we just got to make sure we timestamp that thing so we know when we actually start.
There's a reason I'm doing this at the beginning, is so I can easily cut around it and just make it its own thing.
I kind of this is purging. You know? Diary of the mouth. Sometimes we don't get to do on these films.
I really wanted to. That's why I made the time. So going back towards the beginning, where there's like a weird ass fucking montage scene where he's like him in the field with the fucking orchestral music playing and like intercutting with him in India. It's like, why? What is the reason for this stupid shit going on? It's just a menagerie of fucking bullshit. Like, it's just 100% just this music blaring at you with like the insistence that something deep is happening without giving us a reason to care about this guy or give a shit about anything that's happening. We don't know who this guy is. All we know is that he's going to turn into Steve Jobs and that right now he's just a fucking shoeless hippie that skips his classes and takes LSD and talks about the universe.
Yeah.
Like, oh, fucking cool. Who gives a shit? Like, I don't fucking care.
Dude,
it was from that moment on I knew this movie was going to be really bad.
It's funny because I think we're at the same points, except you go way deeper than I do with it. I'm just seeing him out in the field and the music playing, and I'm like, oh, I guess he's at one with the world. Let's make a 6-minute montage showing how he got to this point, perhaps. Like, they go to India for no reason. Like, there's a lot of stuff in here that is like just filler.
The reason is that the movie wants you to think, oh, wow, he's such a hippie, when we already thought that from the moment when we see him as a young guy.
He walked in shoeless. At that point, you go, oh, okay, like he's part of the revolution. Like at literally when they show him walking into the hallway barefoot,
yeah,
you can go, okay, like he obviously lives by his own rules. Like that's it. That's all we need. Yes. Right there.
That's all we need. And then the movie's like, no, we got to show him being a stoned bastard. It's like,
well, dude,
okay,
and
cool.
then they play like a Cat Stevens song as he's walking up, and then they go into like, a 3 or 4 minute thing with him like getting kicked out of class or talking to a guy how he doesn't believe in it, and then like working with this girl but going, I have a girlfriend, I'm not a player. And then another
yeah, there's like a weird cheating subplot that happens for 5 minutes that's just completely dropped later.
Yeah, for no reason. He's no, you had to know that he's with Ruth Ann. Like you had to know that he was with Ruth Ann so that their relationship, you at least in the background of your mind knew that when that kid happens, you know, he's been with this person forever and like he's not hooking up with other people. I don't know. It was bizarre.
Well, it's funny watching the Fassbender version first. It actually kind of helps give you more context for the Ashton Kutcher version, because otherwise you'd be like, what the fuck is the meaning of this? Like, who's this chick that we're supposed to care about?
Yeah, not even care about, just
or
her
like
name got dropped.
That we're supposed to know and follow.
She's like a Chekhov gun. Like, we're just gonna drop her name. We won't show her, introduce her.
Yeah.
And then, I think that like they did at one point, right?
Yeah,
there's two. I only remember 2 scenes with her.
I think if I remember right, there's this scene where he like takes acid with his friend and then the girl, and then
so they really do acid. I missed that. Like, I
think so. I don't remember if it's with Chris Ann or if it's with the girl that he's like cheating on her with.
Chris Ann. Who? I couldn't tell you, dude. I got checked out.
There was one point in the film where he's with the other girl, and then he I think it's like after they get out of bed and they're naked, and then he drops it on her that he's like, oh, I got to go meet up with my girlfriend, and then she's like, you have a girlfriend? And then like after that, it's like pretty much dropped. And it doesn't go anywhere. It's almost like the girl that he's sleeping with, cheating on his girlfriend with, is like a red herring in a movie that doesn't call for any sort of mystery behind it at all. It's a fucking biopic.
Yeah, I don't know. Was he cheating? I thought he was helping her with some studies because she was like giving him like I don't know if it was implied.
I don't remember if it's like a cheating thing or if maybe because they're hippies, it's like not that big a deal or like something.
I don't. So yes, that whole thing.
The movie treats it as if it's a mic drop of like, oh, he's not being truthful or whatever. So maybe that's why I thought about that.
Yeah, the one that got me was when he decides to leave and then the professor knows him by name, and with 3,000 students in this fucking university, and is trying to convince him to come back and draw.
Yeah.
Like that, I don't know if that really happened, but that's the one that grabbed me, and I was like, nah, I don't know. That seems weird that a professor would walk up. In the 70s were different, so who knows? I mean, I found that bizarre. Yeah, and then what? He just all of a sudden he's working at Atari, right?
He's working for like a fucking video game company, and his boss is David Denman, who plays fucking Roy on The Office. And he's like, hey, I'll give you like $1,000 or whatever if you figure out a way to make our games better. And then he like gets his friend Woz, and this is the introduction to Steve Wozniak.
Yeah, who no one knows. He just called up. He's like, Woz, old buddy, I got a job for you.
And the way that they have their dialogue with each other is like so exposition heavy of like their relationship. It's like, hey, thanks for having my back on this, man. No problem, man. That's what best friends are for. I'm always here for you. Yeah. You can count on me when you need me. It's like every fucking scene where those two have an interaction, and most of the time other characters too, the dialogue goes on for way too fucking long, and Stilted. It over-explains everything to the point where like we don't need them to keep going with this. I think the biggest offender of that is the scene where Woz walks into the office and Steve Jobs is there, and Woz tells him he's leaving Apple.
Oh, yeah.
It's like every single thing Woz tells him, it's like, you don't need to keep going because you're saying the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah. And that's the one I think I was texting you about, where I was like, it's a really bizarre thing because they dropped the Woz storyline and he just showed up. Like, I'm not lying, like, because I was kind of painted. I was like, what's going on with Woz? Because like, for some reason he got booted off the Mac after he exploded on the team because they weren't doing the word processing correctly and they couldn't get the font right. And then it's like, oh, this is when he's getting kicked out of Apple, but that wasn't it. And then they come back and he's talking about the Mac tour, trying to help them out with that. Or get back on the Mac. So Woz hasn't been around in probably 20, 30 minutes. And then he just walked in and is like, consumers aren't computers or something like that. And Like they just get into it, and you're just sitting there like, dude, where's this built up tension at? I haven't seen you guys argue like a whole lot besides Jobs treating him like shit.
Well, the whole movie, like, Jobs just kind of ignores him. And so Woz is in the background for most of the time, only intercutting in like, a few scenes here and there for, like, 1 or 2 lines. And then all of a sudden, like, Jobs is in his office at night, like, looking over fucking papers or some shit. And then Woz is like, hey, we're not friends anymore. You're an asshole. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I wish he would have said that and then left. But, like, fucking, he just had to keep going with the dialogue.
No, you see how Rogan does it so much better.
They cut to the point.
People aren't binary.
They cut to the point without feeling like it's wasting any sort of dialogue. And it gave me like such a good appreciation for Aaron Sorkin and the way he wrote that movie.
Yeah.
Like this movie is almost just the anti-Aaron Sorkin.
Dude, this is a paint by numbers. Like
it's so paint by numbers.
You could pull this out of like a Barnes and Noble how to like screenwrite, you know, a movie and throw it down there and have a guy read this like, oh, okay, like just follow these numbers. Like I can do that.
Yeah. Like the way it's written is paint by numbers. The way it's shot is paint by numbers. It looks like a fucking Hallmark movie. The goddamn soundtrack was annoying the shit out of me. I think I hated Bob Dylan after this movie was done. Like I couldn't fucking stand the guy.
It's me and you, Bob.
Yeah. And then like what really got to me is that throughout the film, Ashton Kutcher would have these weird, what I dub as Heisenberg moments.
Yes.
Where he like freaks the fuck out and he like the most obvious one, it's like right after the scene where Woz leaves Apple, where he's driving down the road and he's like looking down the windshield and he's like super pissed off. He's staring at the camera and then all of a sudden Ashton Kutcher just screams and goes, ah! And it just like hard cuts in the middle of him screaming. It's like, first of all, Ashton Kutcher can't act his way out of a paper fucking bag in this movie. I can't separate him from Michael Kelso. It's just so goddamn stupid.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, having him do a scene where he's trying to be serious and angry and screaming just comes off as so fucking goofy. I can't take anything this guy is doing in this movie seriously because he's not a serious guy.
No,
they just cast him because he looks like him. They didn't think, oh, wow, maybe he can't act as Steve Jobs.
Exactly.
Like,
I mean, that's he never. I don't think at any one point, Kelso escaped me.
Yeah,
like there wasn't. I don't think one moment. The closest it was at the very beginning, and you just don't know what you're gonna get from him.
Michael Fassbender's so good because he can just slip into it. And like we said before, he might not look like Steve Jobs all that much, but they do a good enough job of like dressing him up like in his clothes.
Yeah.
And having him get the mannerisms down and sort of make the role his own kind of character. You know, even if it's not like Steve Jobs to a T, at the very least, Michael Fassbender is doing something different.
Well, I mean, like, and I think he's doing Steve Jobs. Like, you don't see Fassbender freak out. You don't see him scream or lay down, you know.
No, he's just a sharp-tongued asshole.
Yeah, and he raises his voice a little bit, and you can see in his eyes he's getting pissed, but it never escalates.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's I think like when he made Steve Jobs like how he saw Steve Jobs, which is way better than what Michael Kelso did.
And then in this movie, fucking Ashton Kutcher has a fucking baby ass tantrum about fonts.
Dude, the one through line through all this, I was like, oh, I guess he was an asshole with probably a vision and he wanted everyone to see it the same way he did. That's about the only thing I got.
But he's playing this like he's cartoonishly about to like have his head explode every time something bad happens to him.
Well, and that's why. Well, so I don't get too hard on it because I don't know the freakouts that happen. Like I don't know if Fassbender got closer to it or if Kelso got closer to it. You know, like I don't know, and I bet you Fassbender did. Like if we had really. now
I
that
would be
interview,
willing to put money on it.
Yeah, now that interview question of like, how did you find your source of the role? He's like, oh, I watched Ashton Kutcher in the original Jobs film. Ha 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 ha.
He's just taking the fucking piss out. It's so fucking funny. And then there's also that one scene. This is another kind of like Heisenberg character moment where he and Chris Ann get in a fight, and Chris Ann reveals that she's pregnant, and he's, of course, insisting that it's not his.
Right.
And so they're fighting in the house, and he goes into a separate room, and his friend Daniel comes over, and he, like, comforts her, and she reveals to Daniel that she's pregnant, and he's like, you gotta leave him. He's not good for you, blah, blah, blah. And then meanwhile, it cuts to Ashton Kutcher in the room where he's wearing, like, a black long-sleeve shirt, and he has this, like, weird moment where, like, he gets into a little bit of a hissy fit, and he, like, tucks his shirt in, and he looks in the mirror, and it's as if he, like, changes his entire demeanor to, like, not be as emotional, and he's, like, completely stoic. And it's like he goes from Walter White to Heisenberg in that moment where it's like, yes, now I'm Steve Jobs. Now I'm going to be the raging asshole everybody knows me to be. And it's like, what the hell is this? Like, nobody acts like this in real life. This is just so cartoonish and dumb. I hate it. I hate this fucking movie. This is a piece of shit. I don't know if there's anything else I can say about it that I haven't already ranted to you, to my coworker, and to my girlfriend.
Oh, dude, this is the biggest nothing burger that you'll get. I mean, you know, it helped actually. What's kind of funny is it actually helped explain a little bit more of the other film in certain moments that were happening in the other film. Like,
yes.
I've really the one thing that I did like about this was learning that the whole John Scully thing was a mutiny against Scully that Scully had to nip in the bud. Mm-hmm. Like, that was the best part. And then it's like, I wish they would have did a little bit more in the other one of explaining that than in this one. But yeah. I mean, it, you know, in attaching names, because they talked about Merkla, Scully. You know, I don't know if they talked about maybe Waz a little bit. I can't remember. You know, he's trying to pick up members to join this mutiny to get Scully out of there because he's going to ruin them. And that was about it. I mean, other than that, this is one of the... I think, though, there's going to be a couple things that I remember from this thing, just in terms of cartoony.
Yeah.
You know?
I think really the biggest difference between you and me, it seems, is that this movie actively made me angry and upset because of how bad I think it is. And this one, it sounds like it's more like a forgettable thing to you. Like, you're not really going to take anything away from it. And, like, nothing's really going to stick with you for a while.
No, I'm telling, like, all this does, me watching it was like, I wonder how much this is going to help me with the other film.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's almost like you're, like, if I was game planning and I was just watching a bad team play someone, it's like, I'm going to just watch this film and see if, like, any, you know, trick plays or secret formations come out, or maybe they run something here.
No.
Other than that, I won't remember shit about this film. Like, you know, watching football tape. And it's the same with this one. Well, in the difference is you probably sat down, you know, kicked up your feet, you threw it on. I had something else going on. Like, I'm telling you, I got 5 minutes into this thing, and by the time that he went to India, I was so confused about him being in India, and that's 10 minutes into the film.
Unnecessary. Completely unnecessary.
Dude, the sales pitch stuff was supposed to be funny. I mean, he fucks over Waz, like, right at the beginning. You know, the thing's a grand. He's like, yeah, if you make it, it's $250.
Can we talk about the, like, sales pitch guy at, like, the weird fucking retail store?
Yeah,
His acting was so bad. Like, it might have been worse than Ashton Kutcher. Like, I don't know what that guy was channeling in that scene. But
nothing. They were like, this really didn't happen. Like, you're just going to be the guy that we have to explain, like, why this isn't getting off. And you're just going to be the random guy that bought computer components from Steve Jobs.
It's like the guy learned his lines 5 seconds before they started recording.
Dude, the one thing I hate in movies is when they have to dumb it down for the audience and they don't take real life events. You know, so, like, maybe he did go to the sales con meeting or whatever it was to pitch his new idea, like Shark Tank, you know? And maybe that really did happen. They have this guy that works at Mom and Pa's fucking IT store.
It's like a Radio Shack almost.
And he's like, I'll buy your computers for no reason. Like, nothing popped off of what they did that was like, some guy should be like, I'll get it. Because they fucked up the whole... instead of making that thing like informational and doing some exposition in there about what it does and just having no one understand it, they dumb it down. Woz fucks up the pitch. Jobs comes in and pretty much goes, "This is going to change the world." And then like 2 people clap.
Woz, you're being too much of a nerdy bastard.
Yeah,
Let me
God
swoop
damn
in
it,
and be
you
cool.
fat idiot. God, you're just drooling over yourself. I got it.
Put down the burrito and quit being a fucking incel.
This computer's gonna change your life. And then like walked out, and then some guy's like, "I'll buy that thing. I got it right here."
Hey kid, I like the cut of your jib.
Yeah.
I want to buy 500 of these fucking
And
things.
so,
from you.
hey, like, also they didn't make it correctly, so now they got to go back there, and we're gonna see how cool Steve Jobs is selling these things and how this thing got off. And then the fucking idiot IT guy is like, "Oh, instead of just saving my money, you know what? You got me, kid. You got 3 more months." And then dude, it was all. It's just really silly exposition still on how to like the computer's getting made, and they dumbed it down so much. Is like, we need to have a kid be able to see this and understand it because that's how Jobs did it.
It's all in service to try to make Ashton Kutcher's Steve Jobs character look like the coolest character in the room.
Yes.
When all it does is just fumble the ball and like fall down the stairs through the scene that it's trying to establish.
Well, dude, you know, there's always groups of people, right? And you can find the coolest guy in the nerd group, you know, and it's still, he won't be the coolest guy to everyone else. It's just in that clique, he's the coolest one. You know what I'm saying? So like they're surrounding him and they're like, well, Kutcher is this, you know, Steve Jobs was the smartest guy in the room. He could see the world in a different lens, and he knew how to dominate, you know, these conversations are in the line, you know, the sales line, whatever you want to say. And it's like, okay, well, why don't you have the people around him somewhat competent? Because now it just looks like he's preying on people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
It looks like he's doing charity by helping out these stupid nerdy idiots.
dude, there's a movie with Jeremy Pivens that's called like The Goods or something like that, and he's a car salesman, and it's almost like the exact same thing. Like, I got a group of idiots that couldn't sell a freaking, you know, Chevy to a goddamn whatever, and it's like, I'll show them how to do it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like, it still doesn't make you look any better. Why don't you get the best around you and top them? Then I'd be like, whoa. Like, him going around and preying on everyone and then just selling the shit, I'm like, he just seems like a dirty salesman.
Yeah.
That just forced people to do like his vision. Like, that's where that's why I lost interest in this thing. Cause I was like, from what Fassbender showed me, I've got a good enough depiction of what Jobs was, but they do it in a really respectable, like you said, sharp-tongued, witted manner, and he's very quick with facts, and you can see that he has a very good knowledge base around him with like history and poetry and art and all that, and he's well educated, right?
Yeah.
This one doesn't make him seem like that at all. Kutcher does nothing to make you feel that way. He just seems like a dirty salesman that's like, you know what? I just want computers to be different, and they'll sell.
If I was Steve Wozniak watching this movie, I would be so angry and upset. And I looked up a quote, and I don't remember exactly what it is off the top of my head, but he talked about how someone asked him his opinion on the Ashton Kutcher Jobs movie
I hope he didn't see it.
when the Michael Fassbender one was in development.
Yeah.
And he gave a comment saying, I'm a consultant on the Fassbender one. I can't comment too much on the Jobs one, the Ashton Kutcher film, except for the fact that they came to me with a script and I read it and it was bad and I gave it back to them. Yeah, this dude read the script and was like, this fucking stinks, and gave it back to them and said, nuh-uh, I'm going over here with Danny Boyle.
Dude, he probably just read his lines. He's like, what is this shit? Like, I'm not an idiot.
He said specifically the script was bad. And so
Yeah.
we can infer that, like, okay, he had enough wherewithal to just get the fuck away from this thing.
Dude, he probably just read his lines and was like, Star Trek, like, I liked it, but guy, I put the Mac 2 to fucking together. Like,
guys, why am I eating a burrito 3 times throughout this movie? What the fuck?
Didn't they make it seem like anyone could have did what Woz did in that film? Like it felt like if you found your nerd in your grandma's, like in your friend's grandma's house, he could have did what Woz did.
They made them seem like they were just like incompetent incels that had no idea how to talk to other human beings that weren't nerds.
Yeah.
Like, it's fucking crazy. like Apple's listening to me right now. I'm getting a fucking spam call. They're gonna blow up my house. It's fucking nuts. So one thing I want to touch on before we wrap this little segment up is that we didn't touch too much on like the difference in the structure between the two films. So for those who don't know, not to give anything away, but the Michael Fassbender, Danny Boyle directed film is structured in a very clear 3-act where every time it switches between them, it's a different preparation for a presentation that Jobs is going to do.
Yes.
Like the meat and potatoes of each scene is like right before he gives a big presentation, and it's him going around with Joanna Hoffman and Steve Wozniak and Andy Hertzfeld, John Scully, like all the big players in that film, and having a dialogue, like his daughter. Like you learn a lot about like the in the moment scene, while also learning about like a lot of the backstory of Steve Jobs and like the characters that surround him. In this movie, it's just a straightforward like going through the beginnings and the ends, kind of the ends of Steve Jobs and his legacy. And there's a lot that they leave out that I'm curious, like if that was just a decision based on like, oh, how true to his life was this, as a film, or if
the
they
Kutcher
just
one.
Yeah, or if they just didn't like concern themselves with certain elements, because like Joanna Hoffman just straight up isn't a character in this film.
Well, Joanna Hoffman isn't real, so that was the one. And shame on me because I think I was just taken aback from.
Joanna Hoffman isn't a real person?
I don't believe so. I think she was put in, if I remember reading it right, she was put in for like the audience members to relate to and just to develop, like keep the dialogue going. Mm-hmm. He might have had an assistant, but I think if I remember, she is.
Joanna Hoffman is a Polish-American marketing executive. She was one of the original members of both the Apple Macintosh team and the Next team. So
she's
a real person.
I don't know. I thought I read somewhere that she was a fictional character.
Maybe they used her real life character as like a combination of like other characters.
Or I think it was to help the dialogue and the plot continue on. It was more so I think she was like, and once again, I'm not gonna sit here and speculate on what she did or didn't do.
Right.
But from what I remember reading was she was there to help the plot progress because you needed to have a second body that was constantly there progressing and without people continually running into him. So she wasn't in this.
She wasn't in this, and at the very least, I thought maybe she would have been an important part in the story of Steve Jobs. Andy Hertzfeld is just like a small footnote in this thing.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to pay attention for him too.
He's played by the guy who plays Foggy Nelson in the Daredevil TV show. I recognized him from that. They cast him as like this nerdy, dopey looking guy, which I mean, good on them, I guess. And it's a different perspective on John Scully, just like different weird character choices throughout the film that I'm wondering if it's just based on like true to life notes that they got, or if they were just like, fuck it, we're just not going to bother with it.
I don't know. I'm a little, because of the difference in the styles of film, I'm wondering if that had to play because with this one, I think some of the big events, I think they were focusing more on Jobs as a person rather than as a character study. Mm-hmm. It was more about just kind of going through his maybe biggest events, because like they touch on Next, and in the one that they in the Kutcher one, Next was this huge failure, whereas in the Steve Jobs one with Fassbender, it's a strategy. It's almost
like he's doing it as a strategic move
to
get back to Apple. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it sounded like he knew exactly what he was doing. Whereas in this one, it sounds like he completely failed and, it cost him his job. So, yeah, I wasn't trying to dive too deep into the characters, but I was interested in why one of them had more of the prominent pieces versus one that would just, and I think what it was just introducing them at that points in the storyline of where he's at in life. Mm-hmm. Like they don't really do much of anything for character development.
Not at all.
And even Steve Jobs really doesn't have a whole lot of...
After a certain point, he just becomes like a muted kind of shell of a person in the story, and he only says like a few words here and there after a certain point. It really becomes about like John Scully and the struggle for like the power of CEO.
Yeah, it was... I mean, it's a really... I think this is... Like, if you were to read an like an autobiography on Apple.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what it felt more of like as you see the company grow and where it goes to.
It becomes a lot less
to,
about Jobs and more about the company.
Yeah, and I think that's where it kind of got to, because there's a point where he gets kicked out and they focus a little bit more about failures and bringing in Scully and replacing Scully and
kicking out the other CEO.
Yeah, like there's some weird points in there, and then they I don't know if they use it as we have to get him back and that's why they did it. I don't know. This just felt kind of like if you were to read like a book on how Apple got started and everything that happened, 80% would focus on Steve Jobs and that extra 20% would be the shuffling parts that we saw.
Yeah.
So.
Seems in line with what you were saying. Do we want to get into ratings for this little bonus segment we got going on?
Sure.
Or is there anything else we want to talk about? I could rant about this literally for like another hour, but
yes.
I feel like maybe we should wrap it up so we can
we can. I mean, like I think the crux of what we had to say has been said. I just
wanted to get it recorded and out there.
Yeah.
Because it felt like poison I needed to get out of my veins.
It was and honestly, it's why I didn't.
I took a bite of the poison apple.
I'm glad you did, because now I hope helped you see how much better. Remember when you go, any director could have filmed that one? And I was like, all right.
Maybe not any.
This is a second effort at this film. So
listen, 2 weeks ago, I was a different person. I was very naive.
And I also want to say that, just so we have it out there on film or on audio, is that so the 3 sequences were filmed, right? The first act is in 16. This is for the Steve Jobs one, and I forgot to say it on the other one, but it's
2015 Michael Fassbender.
Yes, and the first act's filmed on 16 millimeter, second act's filmed on 35 millimeter, and the last act's filmed on digital to illustrate the advancement in Apple's technology across the 16 years of Jobs' life depicted. So
that's awesome.
Well, and it's a fun little, like when we talk about how vanilla and bland that movie is, there are those small things that Danny Boyle does to help, really accentuate the film.
Yeah.
Which the closest this thing got was playing, Cat Stevens to
playing
Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan like 40 fucking times throughout the whole thing. I hated Bob Dylan after watching this movie.
I just really like that when he's when he's told that he's fired or they're going to have a board meeting, he's just sitting in his empty house and he's looking at a picture of Einstein and he's like, looks like it's just you and me now, brother.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
starts making out with him.
How pretentious is this?
Yeah. It's so fucking pretentious. That's the perfect example of a pretentious film. Let's get into ratings. I'll go first.
Yeah.
Fucking stinky ass movie. 1 out of 10.
Wow. I didn't even have this rated. Honestly, this is going to be a forgettable film that
defies a rating.
Well, it's really going to be funny because I think the only time I'll ever bring this up is if I'm talking about the other film and how this film helped me understand certain events.
Understandable.
It's almost like this is just a really bad, piece of meat, and you're just pulling some of the bits off the carcass, and that's about it. So I'm this thing's like, I'm going to go with a 3 out of 10.
Okay.
I don't think there's any way I could tell anyone ever to watch this, or if they were like, that other one isn't all that great, I'd be like, well, go watch the 2013 one and then get back to me.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. So that's that for our little bonus segment. This will probably come out a week after the actual episode. I'll schedule it to, spread it out a bit.
Yeah.
Get some extra content going. This will be a hearty chunk of bonus content. So the actual episode might be a little smaller, but that'll be okay. We've done like nearly 3 hour long episodes before, so it's not going to hurt us if it's like a little bit smaller than usual. But I feel like we're still going to have a lot to say about David Fincher, so check that one out if you haven't already.
Yes.
And peace be with you guys. We'll see you on the other side.